This is our first chapter, Relations and Functions. We're taking a look at sets of numbers, and this is section 111. In this video, we're going to describe a set in 3 different ways and classify the different sets of numbers. Now I'm just going to point this out the first few times when we go through these videos. Things that I highlight in blue, these are going to be things that you're going to want to write down. And anything that I have gold, you're going to want to put on a flashcard and memorize it. Now, it still means you need to write that down, but we're going to want to put that on a flashcard. It's something that we're going to want to memorize. So let's start with the definition. A set is a well-defined collection of objects which are called elements in the set. Now, what we mean by well-defined is that it's possible to determine if something belongs to that set or doesn't. So, for example, here, if I say the word materia, the reason materia works is because I could say the letter M, A, T, E, R, and I are in that set. I don't need to repeat myself, but those are in that set. But if I said the collection of the worst math teachers in the world is not a well-defined set, it's because, well, there's a little bit of opinion going on there. And so because there's that opinion, we would say that there's prejudice, and so therefore it is not a well-defined set. So there's 3 ways for us to be able to describe the sets. The verbal method, we use a sentence to define the set. The roster method, we begin with a left brace, so we call this symbol here a brace. And then we'll list each element of that set only once and end it with a right brace like this, so we don't need to repeat ourselves. And then we have the set builder method, which is a combination of the verbal and roster methods using a dummy variable. Now that's going to be really important. It's kind of weird. We haven't really written math that way before, but we're going to be using that dummy variable such as x. So let's look at an example. Let S be the set described verbally as the set of the letters that make up the word Smolco. Wrote a sentence to describe it. The roster version of that, there's my left brace, and then I have all the elements inside there. Now I did not repeat the O, and then I have the set builder method, which we have a dummy variable that we usually define as x, and then we say x is a letter in the word Smolco. So we start with our dummy variable, and then we define that dummy variable. Now here is the set of all the different types of numbers that we're going to take a look at in this class. The first is going to be what we call the empty set, which means there's nothing in the set, and we use that symbol there to define it. Then we have the set of all natural numbers, which are your positive numbers starting at 1, counting up. Positive whole numbers, 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth. Whole numbers are all of these natural numbers. We include 0 in them. Integers are all the whole numbers, and we also include the negative versions of those numbers. So -1, -2, -3. Rational numbers are every single possible way that I can take A over B. Now A is an integer and B is an integer, so it has to be from these numbers here. Every single combination of that number over that number, that is going to be called a rational number, like 3 over 4, -7 over 5, right? 7 or -7 is an integer, 5 is an integer, that's going to be a rational number. A real number is any number that possesses a decimal representation. So I could write, 7 over 5 as 1.4. Irrational numbers means that it's all the numbers that you cannot do A over B and those values be integers. Like pi, it goes on forever. 3.14 goes on forever. If you did the square root of 2, goes on forever. The square root of 3 goes on forever. But the square root of 4, well, the square root of 4 is 2. I can write that as 2 over 1. That would be a rational number. And then this last one here, and we're not going to really talk too much about it, but if you notice that BI, there's this imaginary number there. We're going to be talking about complex numbers a little bit later in this class, but essentially every complex number is both the real numbers and any value that can have an I in it. So it's all the real and the imaginary combined together, and it's all those different types of possibilities. So let's close today's lesson. What did we learn today? We talked about the 3 different ways we can describe a set and the different sets of numbers. Now, what were the 3 different methods we use to build a set? The first was a verbal method, which is you just use a sentence to define the set. The roster method, where you have a left and right brace, and then you list every single element. And then you have the set builder method, which is a combination of that verbal and roster, and we use a dummy variable to define what it is that we're going to list. This concludes our lesson. If you have any other questions, please leave them in the comments.